Our next speaker is Aswathy Nair from the Department of Neurobiology and Behavior, and she will be speaking on the rhythm of the brain and movement.
Hi everyone, I'm going to talk about the rhythm of the brain and movement. Every living organisms, whether it is animals, plants, or microorganisms, they have a 24-hour cycle. They have a rhythm, maybe a more active phase and a less active phase, which we call as circadian rhythm. In humans, it is controlled by the brain and it is adjusted by the light. Every physiological activities that happens in our brain has a rhythm. For example, we can go into a deep sleep during the midnight, but we can't think of a strenuous muscle activity during the midnight. Then when is our motor coordination is at its best? It's during the 12 noon. In our lab, we want to see, is there a relationship between the circadian rhythm and coordination? So since we know it's difficult to do experiments in the humans, we did our experiments in the rat. So what experiment we did is, we did a motor coordination test, which is called as a pole test. So what exactly a pole test is, we place the animal on the top of the pole, and then the animal has to look down and come back to the ground. The more the active the animal, it comes very fast. And like us, the rats do have a circadian rhythm, but they're more active during the night and less active during the day. So what we found out was, they took less time to reach the ground during the night. Why? Because they are more active during the night and less active during the day. Now, the thing is, we want to see what happens in the brain to the regulators of the clock. We want to see what happens in the brain too. So there are keys of every cell is a clock, and it has a key, like the keys of a clock. Like we can reset it, we can increase the time. So we want to see what happens if we take off one of the regulator called as the NR1D1. What happens to the rhythm of the brain, and what happens to the motor function? So we did the same experiment, that is a pole test, during the day and the night. We found that once you take off this regulator, they take more time during the night to come back to the ground, which shows that there is a link between the motor coordination and the circadian rhythm. So then now we also did our experiment in the cells from the brain, where like we talk, the brain cells communicate through the signals, through the electrical activity. You can see it blinking. More blinking means it's more active. Again, we did the experiment where we have the control cells, and also where we took off the regulator. So what we found out that once we took off the regulator from the brain cells, the activity went down. Now, what is the significance of this study where we relate the motor coordination and the circadian rhythm? Think of a situation like where you don't need to move in your day-to-day life. That's when you sleep. But what happens, and one beautiful thing about the sleep is we all do dream during the sleep. So what happens if you start enacting your dream? For example, hitting your partner or boxing, or what happens if you enact your dream? Then that disorder is called as a REM sleep behavior disorder. So this disorder, why is it important again? So when you're supposed not to move, you start moving, or you enact your dreams, you engage in physical activities. So this disorder is a disorder that happens even many years before the onset of many motor disorders or movement disorders. And we work in Parkinson's, and we found that the REM sleep behavior disorder occurs even 10 years before the onset of this disease, and it's observed in more than 70% of the population. That is, more than 70% of the people with REM sleep disorder will have Parkinson's in near future. You might have seen old people, that is senior citizens with stooped posture, difficulty finding walking, and they do have sleep problems also. Which is interrupted, which has a link between the circadian and the sleep problems. So in our lab, we try to find out regulators and to try whether to control the regulators and help with these patients. Thank you.